Good morning, everybody. As she said, my name is Jeremy Barndt. I work for the City of Austin's Small Business Program. We're a division under the Economic Development Department. And really excited to talk with you guys about, social entrepreneurship. It's a real popular buzzword. You hear a lot of talk about social entrepreneurship. What is it really? And what I really like to do, as she said, with the City of Austin, what I do is one-on-one business coaching. So I work with entrepreneurs, whether they're just starting a business or they've been in Austin for over 20 years. And, every single type of industry. It could be a food business, it could be a service, it could be a variety of businesses. And, so what I really like to do in social entrepreneurship is help people develop a functional business model. Just because you have a social business doesn't mean that you cannot generate revenue and you can't run a functional, business. That's really what I wanted to talk about today was, what are the, things that you need to do when you're planning? What are the things you need to consider when you're going to start a social enterprise that can generate profit? So, before we get into it, some of the things that you guys have in front of you related to the presentation is going to be this sheet right here, and it has a couple of the slides on here. I had a PowerPoint faux pas. I put up a slide where you might not be able to read it, but it's such valuable information where I'd like to go with the data. So included this for your eyes if you cannot read it. So how the presentation, how it's going to work is I'm going to talk a little bit about the industry. What are the current trends? What is the market telling us? And then I'm going to take you guys through an example of a client of mine who started out, came to me with a business plan. We started at the very beginning, and now she's actually running a social enterprise that is generating profit and growing rapidly. So we'll run through her example as well, and some resources that can help you. Quick fact, Orange Co-working, the place you're actually in right now, when I first met Shelly, it was a business plan. So it's actually awesome for me to get to see, a business plan and how it becomes a reality. So exciting tip there. So, with that, we have to start with what exactly is social entrepreneurship? I get this all the time. In the industry, economic development, entrepreneurship, small business development, social entrepreneurship is an enigma. It's like, what is this? How do we help this? Isn't that what nonprofits do? And the reality is no. Social entrepreneurship, is basically not just a nonprofit. It's creating social change. So my favorite definition actually comes from the Harvard Business School, and it says, social entrepreneurship is the pursuit of an opportunity to create pattern-breaking social change. So pattern-breaking social change, that's just a very powerful statement. And regardless of the resources you currently control. So that means basically anyone can create change, whether you're nonprofit, for-profit, or public sector. So again, anyone, anywhere, anytime can create change. With the business side of it, you're just trying to attach it to a market. What is a current buying behavior? What is a current decision that someone makes with their money and their expenditures that has an impact on something? How can you use those funds? Basically, up until now in the business world, you were taught maximize profit. You go to work, you're maximizing profit, you're a widget or something. In an entrepreneurial world, you don't have to follow that model. You don't have to maximize profit at all costs. You can have a social element to your business. And that's really, what we're starting to see now. And I'll get into a little bit more what the key is there, but that's what we're looking at when you're starting to try to start a social business that also generates profit. Where is that buying behavior? So an example, the one that everyone knows is going to be Tom's. So I can say to this, okay, what is a social enterprise that is a for-profit business? So Tom's, because basically people say the model's not possible. Well, Tom's, is probably the most common one. They had their one-for-one model with shoes. So you buy a pair of shoes, and then they give a pair of shoes to someone in need. Real simple, not really complicated there. But they had a social mission. And so where they've expanded is into eyewear, coffee, bags. And the whole point is that Well, did they make any money? Yeah, Bain Capital bought a 50% equity stake at a value of over $625 million. So I'd say they made money. I'd say they were profitable. And if you go to their website, they have a tracker where it basically shows what is their social impact. Very, very powerful. And that's where we're going to start getting into, is where is this real change happening? Where can you really drive revenue and change at the same time? And so this is my answer to the original question, is what is social entrepreneurship? In reality, what I believe it is it's an increasing demand for corporate social responsibility. You know, if you guys haven't noticed, we're entering the information age. Like, everyone has access to information now. You know, so everyone understands where their dollar is going. All of that's public information. So corporate social responsibility, that's what the American consumer, the world consumer, actually, you're going to see is starting to demand. When I spend my dollar with you, if you're not using that to help other people, I'm not going to spend it on you. This trend is, the numbers are through the roof, and it's only going to continue as we have access to more information, you know, and as we can connect with each other as well. You have a lot of communication vehicles now. So demand for corporate social responsibility, and the key part for business, a willingness to pay a premium. Big change here, you know, in the American and world consumer is, up until very, very recently, we weren't willing to spend, you know, extra for anything. You go to the grocery store, if you're looking at 2 items and it says, you know, olive oil A and olive oil B, which one's less? That was the American consumer, that was the world consumer. It's less, must be better for me. Information, connectivity, communication has changed that. And basically we understand, hey, if I spend more, I can get higher quality, it can last longer, you know, we can change our consumer habits. And this is where, you know, social entrepreneurship really has a chance, is consumers are willing to pay more. And that's where we're getting really into that buying behavior. So how many people in here currently operate an existing social enterprise? 2. And everyone else, are you looking to plan to start one? Great. So the first step that I like to do is market analysis. You have to do it ongoing. It's the one thing that most startups that fail to do, is understand their market thoroughly. So let's look at the market, you know, around this concept of corporate social responsibility and willingness to pay a premium. So who is the consumer? They're younger. 63% of socially conscious consumers are under the age of 40. This goes back to the corporate social responsibility. 66% think that companies should support the environment. The number one reason, and we'll go into some more of those, but all of these people have a willingness to pay more. So we're going to run into the sheets, and we can start looking at the data. So this is from Nielsen. They surveyed over 25,000 people worldwide, and this is a breakdown of who strongly agrees that they are willing to spend more for a company that has corporate social responsibility or has those practices. So you can see from 2011 to 2013 that the rate has risen 5% in terms of willingness to spend just in over 2 years. Another interesting thing is that men, surprisingly, had a higher percentage than women. Over 53% of men in 2013 said that they were willing to spend more. I mean, I think they're probably a little bit better at lying on the survey, in my experience. But I think you know, either way, the trend is that it is rising. And when you look at the age range here, this is the part that is really fascinating to someone like me that wants to analyze the data. Who is going to buy your product? Who is going to spend more? Is obviously you've got the 21 to 39 demographic that I cited earlier. But look at the growth year over year from 40 to 64. Look at these jumps from, yes, I will pay more. These are enormous jumps, especially that's a 9% jump just on the 60 to 64% demographic. What's happening is that, you know, basically everyone knows the millennial generation, that younger generation, you know, we're already in the social responsibility. We're going to become the largest consumer group, you know, in the very near future, and that's where we're going to push it. Everyone knows that. But it's amazing to see how the older generation that, the gap between the baby boomers is really coming along. And for social entrepreneurs, people looking to attract new markets, that's a new area that hasn't been capitalized. Basically, social entrepreneurship up until now was, let's get the millennials. Now it's no, we're going to go after the generation ahead of them. Baby boomers, nope. They grew about 2%. They're going to stay where they're going to stay. And when you're going to start a business, you just have to understand who your market is, who are you really selling to. When you're selling to a baby boomer, it's a very specific sales process. So understanding that ahead of time is really, really important. But for me, the highlight of this is that the market is growing. This is a positive trend. And it's also adding a new market segment, and it's across men and women. So those are the things we're really trying to consider. I brought this up because it was pretty interesting to me, because this takes the same question and it looks at it from geography. I figured that the United States would be one of the top in terms of willingness to pay for socially responsible business. I was shocked to find them all the way down here. But it's amazing to see how social responsibility crosses over into the international market. And that's something that we can draw on a little bit later, but with the advent of e-commerce, with the advent of information being spread over the internet, your market isn't always just right around you. And that's something I've found, is that you're finding that other countries are increasingly becoming aware of corporate social responsibility, and they're increasing their willingness to spend for it. Save a few countries. We do have a few. I think China went backwards, Taiwan, and a couple other ones went backwards. But for the most part, a lot of these countries are getting on board. So this isn't just, and the amazing part is not just a localized thing. This is an international thing that is changing. And what does that mean to your market? So then finally, this is kind of one of the last slides for the market analysis. Like, where are we currently with social entrepreneurship? But this is basically, what do you think the specific area that you're supporting? Because this is where social entrepreneurship really rubber meets the road. What are you improving? How are you improving it? No one is going to give you your dollar if they don't understand how it's going to help someone else. And so that's kind of where you want to start, is understanding, who are you going to help? And how does this impact willingness to spend? So looking at the top 5, basically, number 1, ensure environmental sustainability at 66% of the consumers. 2 is going to be improving STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math training and education. Yeah.
Who was surveyed for this? Where? What?
So this is the Nielsen. It's a global. Yeah, they interview usually about 20, 30,000 individuals globally.
Okay.
3, eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. 4 is going to be provide relief following natural disasters. And the tied for 5th is going to be increasing access to technology. And a good one, in my opinion, support small business and entrepreneurship. So those are the areas, the top 5 areas, but you can kind of see. And so when you're considering an idea, this is a good type of statistic to consider, is, where does my social cause fall in?
Will we be able to have a copy of this slide by chance?
Yeah. And it's available online.
Okay, cool.
But I can, if you guys want to, you guys can take my card, and I can get you guys the presentation as well and the citations.
Thank you.
I should have got a third one.
I'm certified with blind.
Sorry. No, I guess I should have printed this one too. I didn't know. Awesome. Well, no, to me, this is really powerful information. A lot of people just really don't, and working one-on-one with a lot of small businesses, people really don't understand who their customer is before they go into business. They don't really find out what it is they want. And for me, that's just the very basic nature of business. You need to understand who you're going to sell to, what it is they want, and when they're going to want it. So these are some things that you really want to consider. And obviously, environmental sustainability is going to be, very, very prevalent as we move forward in, the climate change and all the other things that are happening.
This is 2011, right?
Yes.
So it's not the most current.
No, their most recent data, I mean, and you're going to find this even American census data. Like people ask me for current Austin data, it doesn't exist. I mean, you can't get.
Because you did the 2013.
Yeah.
Comparison. So I was just wondering.
Yeah. This was the most up-to-date one I could find where it talked about the causes. Like what specifically are people going after? What are the most important ones, and how can you piggyback on those? Yep. So with that, I'm going to move into an example of someone I know, and I've worked with one-on-one personally to help develop her business. So her name is Chapman, and she's a local Austin small business, and she started 2 Hives Honey. And, you know, when I first met her, you know, she was passionate about bees. No experience with bees at all. You know, and we'll get into it in a second, but, you know, basically she knew that there was a problem in the world with bees. And she wanted to, you know, start to create social change and start a business that can help assist with creating more honeybees, you know, in Austin and in the environment. And when I first met her, she had another job, you know, your prototypical entrepreneur, the person who wants to leave their job and do something they have no experience doing. You know, sounds like a great plan. You know, but hardworking, really intelligent, and the bottom line was you need to get experience doing this. So looking at this, it's what is the social problem? That was the first thing you need to identify is if you're going to start a social business, what is the problem that you're going to be solving? So the current problem with honeybees is colony collapse disorder. So basically what that means is all the worker bees leave a thriving hive for some unknown reason. Has a queen bee, you know, has all the ecosystem, but they all leave. So the numbers are pretty staggering. I mean, since the 40s, we're down 50% of the managed bee colonies. And most studies say that in the last 5 years, we've been increasing at an even faster rate, if not at a 2 times rate as where we were previously. And it's kind of a big deal because, you know, honeybees pollinate 1/3 of all of our diet. So it's kind of a big deal. And, you know, so this is a very, very clear social problem to solve. And so, you know, in working with her in the business, it was step 1. How do you get experience to solve this problem? You know, she's not a honeybee expert. She wasn't, you know, anything. So it's like, where do you start? So actually, she left her job and she went and worked out in East Texas, you know, basically as an apprenticeship, basically learning from scratch what it takes to maintain bees, what's all the equipment. And she put in all the time and effort to learn about it, to become an authority, because that's kind of your next step is you have a problem that you want to solve, you know? And this is we're gonna walk through this whole process, you know, to where she is today, because for me, it's the model for how you start a social enterprise that can also generate profit. So the first is, what is the problem? Is this clear enough? So we're going back to this slide right here. What is the problem that people care about? Who is willing to spend the money? Where are they going to spend the money? These are the things that you need to really think about. So solving the problem, how do you become an authority on this? Because if you don't seem like an authority, much like any business, people aren't going to buy from you. They're not going to learn about it. So how do you become the authority for the problem? And so that's what she did. And so from there, you need to launch an initial concept. You know, how do you enter your concept into the market? So with Tara, her initial concept was like, hey, I just want to figure this out, learn how to keep some bees, and I'll sell the honey and the honeycomb, right? So from a profit standpoint, didn't look too good in my standpoint. You know, selling honey, I mean, think about it. One, you got to wait until and hope that you get the production. You don't really know. I mean, you can't tell the bees, like, put them on a schedule and say, we're gonna get all the honey next week. No, pretty much you have to wait until it comes around. So ultimately, we found that this wasn't going to develop into being a profitable business by selling honey and raising awareness, you know, through local honey with honeycombs and things like that. So that's really where a key thing happens, and this is for all entrepreneurs, and no matter what type of business, but particularly for social, is that you need to interact with everyone that is interested in your idea, especially people that are going to be consumers. What is it that they really want? How is it that you can create and further your social impact? So what we found was really quickly that honey and honeycombs aren't the business at all. They're just the marketing. Basically, what became the business was people started saying, can you give me a Hive tour? What is this? And everyone started saying Hive Tours, and it was like, light bulb, okay, I have to maintain the hive anyway. I'm gonna have to spend my time out there. Now I can charge 10 or 20 people for 1 hour, $30, $35, $40, whatever it is, and make a larger profit off the time and educating people on her current process. What happened after Hive Tours, right? So we just started with Hive Tours. So we went from not waiting for honeycomb, waiting for honey as our product to we're getting revenue in the door doing what we already have to do anyway, already doing maintenance. And so what came out of the Hive Tours was everyone's like, I want to do this. I want to set it up in my yard. Help me do that. I want to solve this problem. Let me help you solve this problem. So what she moved into was what she called honey homes, where basically people pay her for all the equipment, all the setup, and to train them. So now it just really evolved that now she almost has products now. Technically she has 2 products. So now she can turn her service into a product. She can call the company that she buys all their equipment from, and now she can start leveraging economies of scale. She can start almost acting as a sales rep for these companies, reducing her costs, increasing revenue, and expanding her share, basically putting another hive on someone else's property. Solved a major issue with the businesses, in the beginning, finding land, buying land. Where do you put these things? Well, now she's turning the people who are interested into it into a Hive tour, and now into basically a honey home on their property, expanding her market share and improving it that way. Classes, ongoing training. So now, she does classes with Sustainable Food Center, and she does classes with AISD, and now she's generating families, children. And what you're starting to see here is what you're calling basically a business model. And this is what we're perfecting is when you come into contact with someone, how do they go from 1, 2, 3 things? How do they become a repeat customer? How do they buy multiple things? So it's basically people want to solve this problem, and she's just listening to them and giving them what they want in a functional business manner. So classes became real popular, and they're going to continue to be popular because the people who get the honey homes, they're going to need continual education. So that way, classes, are great business. Information is a great business. Just because 30 people in a room, 1 hour, you charge $30, $20, whatever it is, you're making, good revenue for your time. So basically, this is a market-driven development that started with, an idea, a problem. And essentially what happened is we moved from the problem to our initial concept to listening to the market and going back to what they want and turning it into a functional business model to where generate revenue and you can start to see a customer flow. And the other side is going to be bee builders. This is the newest product. And basically people go through the Hive Tours and they want to do it, but they don't have the property to do it. I can't put a hive out there. I don't have that type of property. So Bee Builders is a small product that basically I'll show you an image of it coming up, but anyone can have it. If you have a condo, if you have anything, it's basically just a little box that hangs with bamboo, and you put in a bee, and it'll start a little beehive for you right there. And it's a little product that she can turn into. So now you're seeing a service and product mix, and she's really leveraging all the different buying behaviors that people are willing to spend. So common themes. So how does all this impact? So we go back to the problem. How does all this impact? Because if you're going to start a business, The most valuable thing about starting a social business is the message, is what you are teaching people. And basically, it's what is that key indicator? I've done this for this cause. So social impact measurements, basically with every new installation, she's adding directly 10,000 bees right then and there. A mature colony will grow to be 40 to 50,000 bees. Another social impact measurement is the number of people educated, through her classes, through her Hive Tours, about the importance and awareness and generating awareness, for the current social problem. So to date, she's done 54 installations, so she's directly added 540,000 bees. And at maturity, it's going to be anywhere from 2.1 to 2.7 million bees added to Austin just in the time she's been in business. And so that's something that I'm working with her now is how does that become a part of your marketing? How does that become a part of your message? When someone goes to your website, how do they know that? Because that's why people will continue to become your customer, will continue to go through the process, send more people through. Look at all the bees we're adding to Austin. You're adding that element to it. And so far, she's taught over 1,000 students, varying age ranges, varying backgrounds, but in reality, she's educating it, and ultimately when she's teaching someone, that is likely to be someone who's going to become her customer. So very, very clear social impact measurement. This is where a lot of businesses fall short in the social impact space. I mean, with a lot of people that want to do it, when you ask them, what is your social impact? What is the measurement? How are you going to tell people, you're having this change to the problem? So really important to have that figured out and have it set up front. So the main thing I want to go into now is going to be profitability. What are the lessons that we can learn from this example? What are the lessons that we can learn from the other businesses that have been successful in the social enterprise world? And one is going to be the cost of your social benefit. So in reality, for Tara and 2 hives, her cost of social benefit was actually the cost of her product and the cost of her service. You see a lot of social enterprises, I'll sell A, but after I do A, I'll give you B. B has a cost. So if it's I'm going to give away something or I'm going to do something, that has a cost. So understand how your product and your services and the cost of delivering them directly contribute to the social benefit. Higher price capacity. Like we said before, the consumers are willing to spend more now. So when you're looking at pricing your service, your product for social, for a social enterprise, you need to price higher. I see it all the time, and this is for any business, but underpricing. I'm new to the market, I want to get people in. If you start low, you're going to end low, especially as a small business, and especially in a very competitive environment, such as Austin. So higher price, start higher. What are ways that you can leverage a higher price? With Tara, we did exclusivity. Exclusivity sells. So for our initial launch, we're only going to do 10 honey homes. We're only doing 10. We can plan on 10, from a cost standpoint. The best part is with those 10 honey homes, she knows that she's going to add directly 100,000 bees, and she has her cost already prepared, and she can price it effectively. And what happens with exclusivity is, they sold out literally right away. But what also did was all these people reached out that didn't get it. And I know a lot of business people say, well, you got to fulfill them, But what's happened is all those people straight into a Hive Tour. All those people straight into the pipeline. Let's do this next year. So now she has more prediction for next year when the bee season comes around, and she can be better with her ordering. And next year is really a big growth year for her. And so use exclusivity. It's just one tool that you can use to justify a higher price. But big mistake is a lot of people start low on a social. And if you go back to it, the whole point is that people are willing to spend more for it. So make sure you're charging more. Another key to profitability is going to be product to service mix. So with any type of service business, you are a time business. So the reality is for most services, there is some limit in how scalable they are. There's only a certain number of hours in a day. There's only a certain number of you. Another thing is that a lot of social entrepreneurs do not value their time into their pricing and cost structures. So big mistake is, well, right now it's free, it's just my time. Well, then they go to hire someone and their pricing model goes down the toilet because you didn't count on your time for when you needed to take that next jump up and hire someone else. So in your pricing, understand maximizing time. Well, I would pay someone $17 an hour to do that. Does your price reflect that? What I see with a lot of social entrepreneurs is, no, I'm going to go with the low price. It's just my time, and I want to build the market. And you're just basically building yourself away out the door, in the long run. So understand time and learn how to maximize it. And so that's why a lot of times you're going to start with a service, but try to figure out ways to add a product to your business. It adds scalability, and it adds, something that you can always sell. Service has time limitations. Products generally do not. So try to figure out how to get a mix and ultimately leverage economies of scale. That was the real lesson with Tara is in the long run, she's going to be able to leverage bulk orders on her equipment, save money, and ultimately use that to leverage more revenue. I didn't know this, but there's only, if you want to buy your bees, there's only a certain time of year when you can buy the bees. So that's a big element of the business was when do we buy bees? Like how many bees do we buy? Because you have to predict for the next year pretty much. But what we found was that like everyone else in the market, they didn't have bees. So she held on to extra bees and come to find out that they're actually very, very valuable when no one else has access to bees. So now we found another revenue stream where she can leverage all of her economy of scale, all of her relationships, and she can buy more bees next year that ultimately will be an asset in the long run because they're worth 2, 3, 5 times their value in a season when you cannot get bees. So understand economies of scale and how that's going to impact your business. Leverage information. I said it before, information is the best business, period. If you're wondering, like, out of here, what is the most profitable and best business? It's going to be an information-based business. It's free. It's like a book. I can make it once and I can ship it out 1,000,000 times. Information. How are you leveraging information related to your social problem? How are you starting classes, workshops, seminars? How are you creating books? Information. Information, create it once, send it out 1,000,000 times. How are you monetizing it? Really, really important. Partner organizations. I get this a lot, like, well, I want to start it as kind of like a nonprofit. Well, first off, starting a nonprofit is really, really difficult. If you don't have a strong network and a strong community around the problem, really, really hard to start a nonprofit. But there are a ton of organizations out there that are looking to support the community that exists currently that you can partner into. Find partner organizations that will have resources for you. Maybe it's space. Maybe it's staff time, maybe it's current tools they have. A lot of times when you're a social entrepreneur and you're looking to get started, there are a number of organizations out there that will want to partner with you that already exist. So understand who your partner organizations are. They'll help you spread faster. Another key element of profitability is going to be marketing. This is one of the best parts about social enterprise is marketing. It is super simple. Your message really doesn't change too often. You don't have to have all these complex messages and all these complex outlets and try and figure out which messages are working to which target market group. Your message is really, really simple. You have a very, very important problem that you are solving, and you have very direct services and very direct products. So really, really simplified, and it's proven to be very, very influential. So the benefit here is you don't have to have a major expenditure on marketing where a lot of startups do. And the cost isn't always monetary. Sometimes it's in time. That's where a lot of people lose it early, just with any general small business, is marketing, trying to figure out where they fit and the energy and everything you're trying to do. But they could all learn from being simple. This is really, really simple marketing a social enterprise. And just happens to be amazingly influential. As we go back to the statistics, nowadays every age range almost wants to be, giving their, dollars to someone that's corporate social responsibility. So being that it's influential, it's something you can capitalize on. And then the final thing that, kind of found through Tara was grants. She's gotten a few grants. The ways you can get grants done are fiscal sponsorship. So if there's a nonprofit, that operates in a similar field, you can use fiscal sponsorship and leverage their 501c3 nonprofit status to apply for grants. Real common. We do it for artists in the cultural arts department. But fiscal sponsorship.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean by fiscal sponsorship?
So let's just say, just trying to think of one. So there's like an organization I work with, it's a for-profit entity. So they went to a nonprofit and used their 501c3 status to apply for a grant through a grant writer. So they use their grant status and they have a service agreement. Basically, sometimes it's a percentage of the overall grant amount or things of that nature. But it's definitely something that exists and definitely something that can be very powerful. And
I'm sorry, you give a percentage
to the nonprofit.
Whatever you're able to produce from that.
From the grant.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And depending on your industry, for-profits can apply for grants as well. So she happens to be in food. USDA has a number of grants. So if you're in the food industry and you're looking to create change in that type of environment, the USDA has a number of grants that are available. So to recap, what are some of the best practices? You're going to walk out of here. What are the things that you're going to need to do in order to be successful with your social enterprise? These are things that I've collected from people that I've worked with in the social enterprise, social entrepreneurship space in town. And first is going to be to stick to one mission. A lot of times, social entrepreneurs get lost in, I'm going to help everyone land. Everything about my business is going to be socially responsible. They get lost in it. And the reality is that doesn't make business sense. I've yet to see a business that can be green on all levels and socially responsible on all levels. It'd be like if Tara went out and did reclaimed wood for all her honey homes. It's like the business model just doesn't work. Pick one mission, pick one problem, solve that problem. It's a lot easier for messaging, operations, everything. Start as an LLC, not a nonprofit. That's another piece of advice that someone had given me basically is, your business doesn't have to make money. I think the IRS says 3 years and then it becomes a hobby. But in reality, you can run an LLC. It's very lean. You don't have all these requirements that a nonprofit's going to take. And an LLC can also be converted to a nonprofit. If it's 3 years, we've built an amazing community and we're really helping people, but we're not making money, you can convert to a nonprofit. But starting as an LLC is very, very easy and saves you the time of trying to get everything through with the 501c3 status. Consider scalability early on, like I talked about. If it's a service, you're going to have limitations on time. How scalable is the product or service that you're putting on the market? Really, really impacts your ability to create a social impact. Build community. People are going to be attracted to what you're doing. People are going to want to learn more about it. It's where we're moving towards. So build community early. Start figuring out how you're going to connect with people. Host free classes, free seminars, connect with people. The most important thing you can do early on is identify who's going to be a contributor, who's going to be interested, who's going to be a consumer of what I'm selling. Partner organizations, like I said earlier, there's a number of organizations out there who might be already a nonprofit, might be a government agency, somebody out there trying to solve this problem already. Who can you partner with? Who has resources that you can leverage? They already might have a community that you can build around. Adapt to consumers, really, really important. learned the lesson with 2 Hives is you might start with an idea in your mind of what you're going to sell, but adapt to what they give you into a functional business model. And that's where you really want to go, is developing that business model. Is how do people come into your business? What is the flow through it? How do you generate repeat customers? How do you generate referrals? What is money? Basically, I like to drive, an expense-driven business model. A lot of people like to look at revenue and sales, but how are you reducing your expenses? How are you generating the most profitable customer as early as possible? So what are some resources that are available to you in town? Unlimited USA, they're based here in Austin. They actually work out of the Impact Hub. It's a co-working space down on off South First, and it's kind of a cohort. And I encourage you guys to check out, what they're doing. They're the only one in town I know that's focusing specifically on social enterprises. And I think they accept 5 or 6 cohorts per year, but they do a number of events and a number of things in the meantime. Also, Impact Hub Austin, I think it's VUCA is the name of the co-working space, but they're specifically focusing on corporate social responsibility and social enterprises. So they have a number of networking events. I think they have an event every week. So these are places where you can start to connect, build a community, find out who are the key players, who are the key organizations. I'm going to bring this, I don't know if I have the internet. Should check that, but I was going to bring this up, but there's actually some pretty awesome free tools on Harvard's social enterprise page. Nope. Where they actually have a number of their classes on video, and they have developing a social enterprise business plan PDF on there, and legal aspects of starting a social enterprise. So I highly encourage you guys to go to their website and look at the information on there. I found it to be extremely valuable. And I'd also encourage you guys to come and look up the City of Austin Small Business Program. We do a no-cost business orientation that kind of gives you an overview of what are all the different programs and services that the Small Business Program has. A lot of people, like they said earlier, a lot of people don't know we even exist, and we even are out there to help small businesses. I'm a free coach. I sit down with people and help them with their business for free, paid for by the citizens. We also do a number of small business classes, which are taught by the UT Professional Development Center. And we do a number of events, exploring entrepreneurship, industry-specific panel discussions. We've got a number this week, legal launch, doing a number of different things. We have a pitch event as well this week. But we do a number of things trying to connect you to, the resources you need, and we're always collecting data from you to figure out how we can be better. So encourage you guys to check us out. But, with that wraps up kind of the presentation for social enterprise, how you build a business model. I'd be more than happy to take any questions you guys have.
You didn't talk about B Corp at all?
So B Corp is a certification. It is not a business structure. It's not a formation with the state of Texas or anything. It's a certification that you're a benefit corporation, you follow their model. It's
not a tax thing or anything?
Nope. It's a certification. But I'll include that in future presentations.
So when people just do that and then they can say they're a B Corp.
Yep.
It makes people more aware that they're a social.
Exactly.
Social enterprise piece.
Exactly.
Just to add to that, I think there are advantages to the B Corp model as well, because when you go through the certification and when you go through the journey to become certified, you are logged into a community, a networked community of people that may or may not have businesses like you, but that do want to help. So
Yep.
I'm exploring this.
Yeah, and B Corp's an evolving thing.
Yeah.
What I've looked into it, they do have like an initial certification that you can apply for and get like a temp status. But there's basically they have like the list of criteria and the different answers and where you fall into the model. But in the end, it's not a tax classification in the state of Texas.
Not yet.
Who
knows?
I'll be amazed if it's,
Be a while.
I was going to say, it's going to be a while. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to file as well, but that's not going to give you tax.
Well, 17 states recognize it as a legal
Mm-hmm.
entity. Texas isn't one of them.
Right, but that, the tax situation would be a federal.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes, and you probably get grandfathered in if you're already a certified B Corp that Texas adopts it.
Oh, you would hope so.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, any other questions? Yeah.
Are there resources around in Austin about funding social enterprise-focused companies?
There are a few. There is a group. If you send me an email, I just found out about them recently. I don't know them personally, but there is a few social impact investor groups that I'm finding in town. I know one for food specifically, the Austin Food Shed Investors. They're the only people I know in town that invest in food, but there's a few. If anybody wants my card at the end, and I'll find the information for you.
Swan is another, SWAN.
SWPN. They're local
It's
here
like
in Austin? Or?
something Angel Network, but yeah, they are local to Austin. I can't remember.
I haven't heard of them.
It's Swan, yeah.
Be happy to
Swan,
find out.
SWAN, but it stands for something. I can't remember what
Sounds like
it's
Southwest Angel Network or something.
Something like
Oh,
that.
it might be. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming.